eternity of pain. Release your next cage.
Hey everyone, this is Matty Waddy. So this is my Flaming Necromancer build guide. It takes advantage of the fire theme. We have a Pyre Golem with a giant flame aura. We got a bunch of mages, wraiths, and skeletal mages that are just pelting everything with a rain of fire spells. It's really cool to look at. It looks good. It's a bit cluttery, obviously, because there's so many minions everywhere and spells, but it's definitely very satisfying to run through maps and watch it. So I'll show you some clips of boss kills, some mapping, and then I'll also show you the breakdown of everything I'm using. So first we'll get into the skill breakdown of all the specializations and how to set it up. Thanks. I'm using Transplant, the Bone Golem, the Summon Wraith, Skeletal Mage, and the Infernal Shade. So to go through them one by one, we have the Transplant first. So Transplant, as you're familiar with probably, is a movement skill, and it also gives you a buff. So we take all the way up to the right here, just 1 point here. You take the minimum to get over to this node, Pale Blood, and this gives you missing mana restored. So you want to, in this build, you want to get as much mana as you can so you can spam your Summon Wraith, because there's no cap on those minions, right? And then you just take utility, so the Bone Armor, which gives you extra tankiness, and the Simulacrum is just an extra minion, since we're a minion build. And the Last Laugh is increased minion damage for a few seconds after you transplant, so that's just good synergy with your build. And I take Drink Deep as well, just to help. So if you're spamming, because you want to be spamming this as much as you can to keep your buffs up from the skill. So this will help you sustain your life as you're spamming it, because it does cost life. So next we have the Bone Golem. So the Bone Golem, as this is a fire-themed build, is basically just a tank. He is going to do a bit of damage, but he's not your main damage source. So I do have the Pyre Golem node taken. So I have minimum points in these two, Amalgam of Rogues and Burning Bones. Then I get Pyre Golem, and then I max this one out, which increases his fire aura damage and area, so all enemies near him will take fire damage over time. They will take fire damage from the aura as he stands near them. And then I have notes here just to make him tankier. Amalgam of Sentinels is extra health and armor. And then this makes more enemies target him. So that will make... He's just your big frontline minion that will take aggro away from you and help survivability. Next is our Dreadshade. Or not our Dreadshade, sorry, the Summon Wraith. Summon Wraith is our main DPS skill here. We're going fire theme, so we go this way for the necrotic damage, just because it's a better node than Grave Reality, because this makes them cost more and cast slower, which means you can't make as many, which sucks. So we take minimum points here just to get the 2 points. We go Wraithbringer, which increases how much you can spam the skills, because there's no no minion cap on how many wraiths you can have. So in this build, you want as much mana efficiency, mana, and cast speed, so you can summon as many wraiths as you can. We take this, which converts them to fire wraiths. Well, it makes them a 20% chance that you'll summon a flame wraith instead. And then we take the crit nodes down here, max those out for extra damage. And then we take Delay the End, which will make their health decay slower, which will just make them last longer, so you can get more wraiths up at a time. And then I just have 2 points here. At the end, I would take this last. This just makes them restore some of their health on crit, so ideally they'll last longer. So a key point while I'm talking about the wraiths is inventory. So you want to use the wraiths once you get this skill, or this idol. This gives us like an extra 40% chance that when I summon a wraith, it'll be a flame wraith. So as you can see here, most of the wraiths I summon are flame wraiths, right? And they're ranged, whereas the other guys aren't. So these guys will spam fireballs and use spells, whereas the melee wraiths aren't going to do as much because we're stacking minion spell damage. So I wouldn't use the summon wraith until you get an idol that boosts the flame wraiths. So you might be asking, what do you do with the build then? So until you get that idol, while you're leveling and stuff, just use Summon Volatile Zombie. It's the exact same idea. You can dump your mana in it to summon. You can try and keep them up as often as possible. You take the... So you'll take this path down here. So you'll get one node here. You can max that out. You take this as soon as possible to convert all the damage to fire. And then you can max these out, which will make them do like AoE attack in front of them, the vomit. And this will make sure it does all fire damage, and it converts all the poison to ignite. So this is the same idea. Instead of the Wraith, you just spam summon these as much as you can. And they'll run in, do their like blasts. With this, it's like a fire breath, and then once they die, they'll explode and do a bunch of damage in a big area. So you could even use these instead of the Wraiths if you want, but I personally like the Wraiths more. But they fill the same role. You just slap them on your right click, spam them as much as you can. So yeah, Wraiths or the volatile zombies. The mages are my go-to minions, I guess, that are permanent, so they're not dying all the time or resummoning. In this build, these minions don't die on me almost at all. So obviously you work on fire. We do the pyromancers here. So I take this 100%. This converts that to ignite, so their hits will always ignite. This will boost the ignite effectiveness and duration and all that, so they apply stronger dots. This just removes the regular mages from the pool, so you only get the fire mages. That's just one point, definitely worth it. These are crit nodes that you get at the end for extra damage in the end game. And this will actually, once you get this node and some crit investment, they keep themselves alive as well. They don't die out very much at all because they're constantly healing themselves with the leech. This is more leech and health. And then I grabbed this as well. I believe this does fire damage, but regardless, it's just a big AoE spell that casts. Definitely worth getting because it will scale with minion spell damage as well. So that's great. But yeah, so first you'll want to come down here, get this, max both those, then go over here, get the mortar, and then get the crit. If you really wanted to, you could skip out on these and just max the crit. That could be your preference. I might try that eventually, but I think it's good the way it is. And then finally we have the Infernal Shade. So the Infernal Shade acts as like a debuff. I just throw this on like a tanky enemy and it'll add extra dots to them. So the first thing you want to do with the Infernal Shade is you want to get the Hellfire. So because we're not spamming this adds a cooldown, but that's not a problem. You go down, this increases duration, this adds slow, which doesn't really do anything for us, but we need to take it to get this. This is huge. So this lets you cast Infernal Shade anywhere. It can be on an enemy or on the ground, which is whatever. The big point is that it shreds fire resistance per second. So this lasts what, 4 seconds? 5 seconds. So you have 5 seconds of fire shred on the big target, which will obviously make the rest of your fire skills do way more damage. Then I went up here and grabbed the ignite. So the area is okay. We're mostly using it to weaken single targets, doesn't really matter. But you put 2 points there, and then you max these. So this will make it so it ignites every second it ticks. It adds fire shred and an ignite, and then this just makes it do more damage, which is great. So you want to go down here, go up here, and then finally here. So this is the mana efficiency. So like I said, you're going to be spamming your mana on the shades to get as much up as you can. So when you do cast this, you want to use as little time and mana as possible. So these are great points to put in. And then I put one node here, which makes it so there's a 20% chance that your shade's empowered basically and does more damage in a bigger area. There's only a 20% chance though, so it's not really reliable since we have a cooldown. So like you don't really have to put 1 point there, but it's only 1 point investment, so I figured why not. I didn't take this one as well because cutting the duration means less fire shredding, which is trash. So yeah, this is the overlay of my skills. It's been working super well. Here, I'll just summon minions so you get the idea. We have our golem. I have 4 mages, 1 extra from the necromancer and 1 from the passive tree as well, and then the 2 base. To clarify more on the mages, I did not go archmage because it increases damage by 130, but from going from 4 down to 1, that's definitely not worth it, so just to make that clear. And then we have a teleport, which we spam. It leaves the puddle of blood that we heal in as well. And then we just spam wraiths like this. Right, then run out, dash, you can summon some more. And once you get a big army going, you can just kind of summon them as you run. Summon them as you run, right? And there you go. So that's how the build functions. It plays really well. It does great damage. So that's the skill setup. Alright, and on to the next section. Thanks. Alright, so I'm just going to go over the passives now. So, first of all, I'm level 70, so I'm not capped. But by this point, we have all the passive skills that you want, and after this, it's just adding extra points in for extra power. So first, I'll go over the base class. You see I have 21 base, 62 in Necromancer. All of my remaining ones will go in Necromancer, probably. So at the start, we're just kind of putting points in to get up to 20, honestly. The only reason I have 21 is because I'm going up to here. You could take a point out if you want, but I like it here. So, at the start of the game, Blood Aura is just straight damage for you and your minions. Great. And Intelligence and Necrotic Resistance. This is epic because the Int is going to boost all of your skills, every single one of them. And Necrotic Resistance plus 40 is huge. So you'll need very small amount on your gear to cap. So these are both great. This is the one I'd probably max first. And then after that, I have a few points here just to move the bar up. That's minion health and vitality. Again, great. Make you tankier and your minions tankier. Then I put in the minimum of 4 points here, which boosts the attack speed and cast speed of your minions. And then also gives you a little passive. So it'll boost your cast speed as well. And then once we get 4, we get this node, which is Unreal. Soul Aegis, 1 point. You have minion armor per level, so this scales as you level up. 3 armor per level. So at level 70, this is giving me 210 armor to all my minions, which is great. And we also need Infernal Shade for the build, so we have to go up to 20, obviously. So these points aren't that important. Just, get the int, get some damage, tankiness, cast speed, and the armor. So that's just a bit of everything. The Necromancer points are much more important. So we use just the Skeletal Mage and the Summon Wraith, so you can start using these pretty early. But I wouldn't use Summon Wraith until later on, as I mentioned in the skill breakdown. But yeah, so I kind of put a few points across here. 8 in this, because obviously damage, attack, and cast speed is perfect. That's a huge damage node for between the cast speed and the damage. I have this, which makes it so when you use a potion, you heal extra, I believe. Use a potion, your minions are good with hunger. So when you use the potion, you get extra attack speed, and then you get attack and cast speed, and you get health on hit. But the reason I take this is because it applies to your minions as well. So then your minions will be healing when they hit enemies, which will prevent them from dying and obviously give them a small damage boost. So Grave Thorns. This is just a bit of extra minion health and armor. So you wouldn't even have to take that if you don't want to. But I did. I put 1 point there. This is health regen, and this is ward retention. So the health regen, again, I'm just kind of taking these to move up the bar. They're not super consequential. But health regen's great. Minion health regen's good. Keeps them alive. This is really good in our build because the Volatile Zombie and the Summon Wraith, the zombies self-destruct, obviously, and the wraiths slowly die over time. So you're constantly, as you're spamming those skills, going to be getting ward back from this passive. So that's a great node. And then, health regen. This is extra minion health, again, just to move up the bar. We don't need the extra skeleton there because this doesn't apply to your mages, so I don't take that. This gives you ward when you use a minion skill, which in tandem with Reclamation of Souls, Wisp-Weaver together, means you're getting ward when you spam your summons, and you're getting ward when they die out. So this just kind of gives you a constant buffer of overshield, you could say. And Mark of Punishment is in the same vein. So as you constantly summon the wraiths, they're obviously constantly dying out. Same with the zombies, they're constantly dying out. And then I put 2 points in, so as they're constantly dying, they're going to be applying curses to enemies, the Mark for Death, which reduces all res by 25, which is great, especially for bosses. So this will make all your minions do more damage by a pretty decent amount. You can put more points if you want, but I've found 20 is good. Keeps it up on the tougher enemies. So the second half is a little more... this is where you really get your power spike. So once you get up to, what's that, like 25 points or 20 points. So I take one node here. This reduces minion health and increases your health. Not something you need, but you need one node to get Cling to Life, which is great. Cling to Life I max out. It gives you 8 vitality, extra life, and health regen. And then 16 all minion res, so that'll make your minions significantly tankier. This is boosted minion fire damage, which obviously is great for our build. We're using all fire damage for our minions. And then, so when you're hit, when you're low on health, this also gives you a little passive that you have a small chance to consume a minion to then heal a bunch of health. So that's not really big, just the fire damage is great. And then we put 1 point here as well, just to get to the crit nodes. So you max this, take 1 point here, 1 point here. 25. You max this because it gives plus 10 fire damage to all your minions. That's the good part. The extra necrotic damage is just bonus. So this you want to max, adds a bunch of damage. Like I said, you max this, max this. This you will max eventually. This is extra crit chance and leech on crit for your minions, so this will help them stay alive a lot longer as well. They won't slowly die out. I mean, your permanent minions, your mages, will heal themselves a lot. And then Rite of Undeath, another great node, gives you necrotic resistance, elemental resistance, and it boosts all your minion elemental damage by a lot. This is only 3 out of 10, and it's 45%, so that's unreal. And then obviously, I only put 3 to get access to Disciples of Necromancy, which is where my 4th Skeletal Mage comes from. And then, so once I've got this maxed, 3 in Rite of Undeath, and your extra Necromancer, that's when I start doing the crit nodes up top here, because these I'm going to spec into later on in the game. They're also the later passives in the skill trees for the specializations. So as I level up, I'm just going to be dumping points here. As you can see, there's 9 left there, 6 there, 2 there. And if I somehow max all that, if I play this one that long, then I'll start dumping points here as well for resistance and flat damage. Or sorry, percent increase damage. So that's the passive skill tree. Yep, max, extra minion, and crit. This crit node, when it comes to maxing these at the very end, I put 3 points here for the extra because it gives you 60% crit to your minions, which is great, but it also makes them leech a ton more. So this is actually really good for damage and survivability. So I put 3 points there to get also access to Heresy. I would max Heresy first and then finish off River of Bones. And then at the very end start getting this. Because 7% crit multi, it's good, but it's not like amazing. It's the only modifier on this that helps this build, so I would definitely get this last. But this gives you int and minion crit, only a bit of minion crit. But like I said earlier, intelligence is peak for this build. It'll boost all your spells, all your minions, everything. So yeah, that's a pretty thorough rundown of all the passive skills I've taken. Like I said, there's definitely some wiggle room. Like you can take the 1.1 out here and maybe just toss it in there for extra damage. You could probably take 1 point out of, even just take that point out if you can. Because we're obviously 1 point over the 20 point minimum to get our specialty, so you can kind of play around with this however you like. None of them are too important besides this one, Forbidden Knowledge. And then the Necromancer tree, you know, you kind of just work your way up to the second half, and this is where the big damage comes out over here. So, anyway, that concludes the skill portion. Thanks. Alright, hey everyone, so this is going to be a quick breakdown now of the items I'm using. So, I'm not using anything too crazy right now, but I'll explain the stats that you want and the one unique I am using. So I'll start with that. Raven's Rise gloves are insane for this build. They give you a ton of extra minion movement speed, and minions take less damage while they're moving, so as you're running through the map, it'll be a lot tankier. But the real reason you want this is the +2 spell minion skills, so that gives us +2 to both our damaging abilities, which as you can see, I only have these at 19, so my Shade and my skeleton mages are both at 21, and they will go up to 22 once I level these up. So this, for the shade specifically, those extra 2 points are going straight into crit chance and crit multi, so that's fucking huge. So that's the main thing. The other stuff, the other only key item you want to use the summon wraiths, like I said earlier, is the idol. So you want an idol that makes it so your chance to summon wraith, to summon as a flame wraith, is increased. So that's cornerstone for this skill. Otherwise, use the volatile zombie, like I said. Next up, so you want minion. You do want a decent amount of minion health before you get leech on your minions. Like I said, your skeletal mages are going to have built-in leech from your tree, so they'll kind of sustain themselves once you have a high enough level. But minion health is great. Intelligence is unreal. You want that on as much stuff as you can get. Obviously, you want to cap your resistances. I have mostly minion health and intelligence. Minion damage is obviously great. I've got a lot of health, minion health regen, and minion damage on my belt. Perfect. I have an exalted minion damage ring. It gives me elemental resistance too. I probably wouldn't use this if it was just the minion damage, but the elemental resist is great as well. Same thing here. Mana regen is huge. So the main stats you're going to want to look out for are obviously minion spell damage, minion damage, and then stacking mana. So those are your offensive stats. As much mana, mana regen, minion damage, and minion spell damage, because obviously as you're running around, you're spamming as much wraiths as you can, like this, right? To get as many as you can. The more you can keep up, the more damage you do, obviously. So right now, with this build, I can get just over 20. They don't stay. I can keep them right around 20 if I'm consistent on the summoning. But obviously, the more mana and mana regen you have, the more wraiths you can summon. There's no cap on them, so mana is a super important stat. And then, yeah, like I said, minion spell damage and minion damage are great. I would aim to get a big minion health roll on your body armor. You probably don't really need it anywhere else if you get a big roll. For the turquoise ring, that's great as well. Minion crit multi, minion health, minion damage, perfect if you get a well-rolled one. Like here, this is basically perfect. If only it was, instead of lightning, it was like void or something, that would be great. My amulet sucks, don't even look at that. But yeah, so that's a quick rundown of what you're looking for. The idols across the rest of them, it's mostly percent health and resistances, minion fire damage and mana. You know what I mean? Like, this had volatile zombie stuff on it. I don't even know why I'm still using that, to be honest. But before you do swap to wraiths, you can use something like this, which will boost your volatile AoE and the damage. And then, yeah, just round out life and res with idols. So, and for the body armor, the heretic armor is super good because it has implicit mana and armor on it, so it'd be decently tanky and a bunch of extra mana. So you want to keep that in mind. You could run a staff. I've been trying the offhand and primary because I didn't only realize recently you can get minion spell damage on one hand. So the only reason I'm using this is because it has 120%, which is epic. And then once I get a better offhand, it'll be more worth it. But I do have this as well. So two-hand staff with a maxed out roll, just about, I believe. 210% minion spell damage, which is also perfectly good. I was using this for a very long time. The rest of the stuff is just stuff I might swap to later. Health, please. Great. So anyway, that's a little quick rundown of the stats that you want. Alright, so finally we have just a clip of me doing a level 65 Quest Echo boss, I believe. So that'll just give you an idea of what it's like playing the build against a bit tougher endgame boss that has a ton of skill shots. The fact that you don't have to constantly stand still to attack means obviously you can dodge a ton more. So yeah, you just take a look. That's the end of the video. So, you know, I'll play that clip and you can check it out and enjoy. If you don't, all good. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.
was supposed to be unstoppable. You are beneath my skill. With this power, I am
Feel my
unstoppable.
wrath.